Hi, Titus here, and just before we get into the podcast proper, Sergio and I recorded this a couple hours ago, and in that time we've had the NBA season put on hold, and shock horror, Tom Hanks. Yes, that Tom Hanks caught with coronavirus, which I don't know about you, just shocked me. You know, if Tom Hanks can get it, we're all in trouble. And suddenly, no one ever wanting physical contact with me is a strength, so... ups and downs. So listen to the podcast. It's pretty up to date, but with everything going on, it changes pretty quickly. And Serge and I, no cuddling during this one, so we're all making sacrifices.
All right, let's not beat around the bush. This new Variety Hour podcast is coming to you from a self-isolation booth at an undisclosed location. I'm Sergio Paradise, and I'm joined, as always, by World Health Organisation spokesperson Titus O'Reilly.
Oh, it's good to be with you. We're rolling into our fifth week straight.
I know. The world's collapsing around us, and we're standing tall.
Last year you and I were all over the unwell and all this stuff, and suddenly we're fine now.
We're the healthiest people in the world. How bad's that? How bad's the world going?
Yeah, so bad.
But everyone's talking about self-isolation as if it's a bad thing.
Or new. People have been, they're saying, social distancing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people have been social distancing from me for years.
Exactly. Avoiding people that's my kind of town. In fact, I think I might just go completely off the grid. I might just get me some guns and build a bunker out in the Dandenongs.
It was inevitable you would end up there, so you might as well...
as long as I've got Foxtel and a big fridge, I'll be fine.
You're the Australian Unabomber in my mind, always have been.
But without the technical know-how to build the actual
I can't be bothered writing
devices.
A manifesto. It's too much effort. Just tweet occasional ramblings. Before we get into all this, we are going to get to the coronavirus and its effect on sport, which is everything we care about, obviously. But we talked last week, if everyone didn't listen, about Greg Norman running a competition to find his biggest fan.
Yes.
And you said you had an update to this.
Well, I looked it up, and he's got it down to a short list of 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's got 5 blokes. 3 from America and 2 blokes from Sydney. Now, he hasn't spelt out why these 5 guys are his 5 biggest fans.
They probably paid the right amount.
Well, they bought enough hats with little sharks on them or whatever. But the prize is a round of golf with Greg Norman. Which I think, honestly, he should just play by himself because he is his own biggest fan.
Oh, by a mile. We've always said that.
Yeah, we said that last week. I mean, he should play around by himself, which some would suggest he's been doing with this whole contest. So that's the update. There is a short list of 5, and I think there's about another week to go before Greg makes the announcement.
Are you shattered you're not on it?
Which I think the whole sporting world is just, waiting with bated breath to find out who wins this contest.
It is the biggest thing.
He is a cracker, I agree.
We should just cover off the end of the Women's World Cup T20 tournament.
It was pretty big, wasn't it?
Did you watch it?
Oh, I did. I watched the whole thing.
They rated really well because if you factor in it was on Foxtel as well.
Yeah, well, I watched it on Foxtel.
So it got over 1 million, got a fair bit over 1 million.
For Foxtel ratings, it was extremely high.
Yeah, it was almost like 500,000.
Yeah, it's between 400,000 and 500,000.
And then you had about 800,000 or something on.
Yeah.
And then that was up against maths and so it was. Yeah. It wasn't a great night. Like it wasn't. It had the night to itself.
No, exactly. Sunday night, sort of prime time early in the year. I mean, that's your main sort of.
And
time.
It was so fun to watch when Alyssa Healy just started belting them all.
You could tell from early in that. From the very first over, I thought, they're on here.
Yeah.
23 off the first over, and then I think 17 or 18 off the second. I thought, unless there's a massive collapse, which usually only the Australian men's team are capable of, they're just going to be on fire here.
Because they never looked that good. I watched every match.
Yeah.
Australia never looked that good in the tournament.
No.
And then Elise Perry goes down with the hamstring, and you're like, I just don't think we're going to get across the line here. Like there was no signs that was, and it's so rare that a team that does that badly have it all click
on the day.
I was expecting there to be articles written the next day if they had lost, like going, well, you could see
it coming.
They never found their rhythm. The pressure got to them.
And then they lost Perry in there. But on the other hand, from those first 2 or 3 overs, I thought, unless there is, as I said, a massive collapse here, they should be fine.
This is why I love, a lot of people say, why do you like women's sports? Which I'm like, women's sports got me through the last few months because there's when it's just more sport.
Well, exactly.
If I need to self-isolate and stay at home, I want to be able to have something on the TV each night.
You're not watching, reruns of maths. Or,
there's only so many grand designs can I watch. So it was sort of a bit like that. But it was a great night. I mean, you just got the sense, huge crowd.
Yeah.
I couldn't go, which I was spewing about. I was away. But we all watched it, all of it.
What did you think of Katy Perry before the game?
Oh, so even that I thought it was kind of stupid. She does that.
It was kind of stupid, but fun.
I'm like, at least she's a relevant.
Yeah.
Like
to the audience and and to young girls who
it's not someone who's like was famous 30 years ago.
Brian Adams or like the AFL would have done. But
I thought the whole package just and Cricket Australia do so many things, and I know it was the ICC as well. They do so many things poorly that actually it was a really good product to use that horrible term. I agree with that.
I think the whole day and night just went perfectly, which they needed given the hoo-ha about the semi-final.
Well, the fact the rain rained out one of the semi-finals.
And the poor scheduling there. They needed a good day.
Yeah.
And they got it, and it was terrific.
Yeah, no, it was really good. So I really enjoyed that. And then I also because I watched the AFLW that day because Melbourne played.
Yeah.
And Sarah Perkins, who was at Adelaide, given a lifeline at Melbourne.
Yeah.
And kicks a goal. It was just a great day of sport. I had a great day watching all of that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a token thing. It was all just absolute, just fun to watch.
Yeah.
As good as other sport I've seen.
I watched a fair bit of the Marsh series as well on the weekend. And I must admit, I did get triggered when I flicked it on in Richmond. There was Daniel Rioli getting a kick. And it just took me back a few weeks. I thought, gee, I still haven't got over
him and Mia Favola.
Mia Favola breaking up, but it was as you say the T20, the World Cup final. They got it all right.
Yeah,
from the top down, and of course the team, the girls themselves.
Yeah,
they did not miss a beat.
And I mean, even the Marsh Cup was actually all right this year. I thought the standard, because there's not as many pre-seasons.
Yeah.
Some of the games are actually okay. I felt it was like a slightly better quality because, it was a bit more interesting.
Often in the past, a lot of the clubs have rested all their good players and just try out all the
but that wasn't
bucks.
the case.
No, they all seem to be wanting to hit the ground running for round one.
Yeah,
which hasn't been the case in the past in the JLT.
Well, then is round one even going to happen and all this sort of stuff? And there's this thing with the coronavirus that it started off all as a bit of a joke.
Yeah, it did.
And then it's just in the last 2 weeks, it just keeps escalating.
And even just in the last 48 hours in Australia, it seems to be escalating on an exponential scale. It just seems to be exploding every day. And every day the reports seem to be getting worse and the reaction's going to seem to be more extreme from authorities and governments, and who knows where it's going to end up.
There's a couple of things that come out of it, and we're going to run through some of the sports that have all been affected. But the thing that's kind of interesting about, there's a couple of reactions to it, right? Like, people go, the one that I find, it would be funny if it wasn't affected, people are not dying, is people go, Oh, it's just affecting old people.
Yeah.
There's heaps of young people on social media that just say, and by young I mean anyone under 65 years old. I don't mean there's not teenagers or something. Yeah. It's going, oh, why is everyone panicking? It's just old people that and it's like, well, yeah, that doesn't mean that we're going, oh, well, that's fine. Like, it's sort of this...
The implication being
everyone's gone to Law of the Jungle already.
Yeah, it's a bit Lord of the Flies already. I mean, the implication being that, a bit of a cull of the old folk. It's been on the cards.
There's so many of them.
Wouldn't be so bad after all, Because we'll be fine. It's just like getting a cold.
Yeah, that's what they're all saying. Like, why is everyone panicking? You're like, well, because there is a sizable part of the population that can die from it.
Yeah.
You can spread it to them.
Yeah.
And also there's this thing, it's at the moment on the current figures, it's 10 times more deadly than the seasonal influenza.
Yeah.
So when everyone goes, it's a mild cold, you go, no, it's not. You're just missing how many people
you got a heavy dose of the flu, you're pretty bloody crook.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worse than a cold.
And the problem with this one is it can lead to pneumonia. So that's basically how most of the people who have died from it have died.
And it really affects your lungs badly.
Yeah, and so most people who get really affects their lungs and then they get pneumonia and the pneumonia finishes them off. And they're sort of saying it's got a fatality rate. It's about 3. There's 2 fatality rates with viruses. There's what is the true fatality rate, which is just of everyone that gets it, how many die. But then because there's so many people, if they don't test everyone, there's all these ones out there that they don't know might have had it. So that would change the figures. They also talk about the fatality case rate, which is of the known cases, what's the fatality? Acknowledging that there'll be a lot of people out there who never got tested for it. And
it's like demographics.
They say that. And depending on what you go from, the best estimate of the fatality rate is about 1%.
Yeah.
But the seasonal flu rate is 0.01%. So it's 10 times more than influenza. So I am not enjoying, but I do find it like kind of an insight into the human psyche where people are going, why is everyone panicking? You go, well, just because you're not one of the people.
Why is everyone panicking, and why is everybody bought out all the toilet paper? And continually, it's still, I thought this time last week, okay, there's been a rush on toilet paper. Yeah. People are over that now.
Yeah.
But you still can't buy the bloody stuff anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing is people are also saying, I saw someone tweet they'd gone into a toilet aisle at a supermarket and it was all empty. And they said, I've accidentally wandered into Fremantle's trophy cabinet. But the other thing I love is this thing of, you have to wash your hands now.
Yeah.
It's like, do it. And, it's like...
Haven't had to for all these decades.
Just showing how much people don't wash their hands, where everyone's going, that's just a reminder of you need to and how to wash your hands. Yeah. And something like, well, what else have we got to say? So you should shower. Yeah. You should brush your teeth. There are a bunch of things that you
wash
should
your hair occasionally.
There's a bunch of things you should be doing. Yeah. So that's all been kind of crazy. You do feel a bit coronavirus out too.
I know.
You can't go on Twitter without every tweet being about coronavirus. Yeah, we're all guilty of that.
Exactly. I've been guilty of that. Well, I am sick of photos of empty shelves, I've got to say. I reckon that site gags Warners.
How many, what do you reckon? What would you bother to stockpile though?
Bourbon.
Yeah, I was about to say, as Dan Murphy's having a rush on,
You buy it by the case. Bourbon. I reckon if you were introduced a giant esky, you would sell 1 million of them right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like a really big, playpen size esky. That you just fill with ice and grog and food, and you'd be set.
That's all you need to know.
That and ammunition.
So it's already like it's gone from people being getting into the sports stuff. It's gone from people going, "This is all ridiculous. It's not going to have a big impact." To suddenly everything's shutting.
Yeah.
So and this will, by the time people probably even by the time we upload this and later today and put it up.
Yeah. Thanks.
I already, when I was online just before you got here, I was like, there were increasingly more sporting events being announced that there's limitations on stuff. So this is by far not a definitive list and is constantly changing.
This will expand.
The Australian Grand Prix obviously is going ahead in Melbourne. 3 Formula One team personnel on Wednesday, we're recording this on Thursday, were moved into precautionary self-isolation and were tested for the virus because they were suspected of having it. It was the Haas Formula One team was the reason this had 2, and McLaren, another team, had another one. They'd had a headache and a fever, this person, apparently. And I think fever's the one consistent thing that every case has. Each case is a little different.
There's a lot of people saying, why didn't the government call off the Grand Prix? I mean, at late notice, I know, but you got to say, all the crews and people who come out here for it, most of them have come from Europe, which is the absolute, epicenter of the whole thing.
Well, Italy at the moment.
And Italy, yeah.
And this is the thing. What they're trying to do is not stop everyone getting it, but if you can, all the self-isolation or cancelling these sporting events does is it lowers the curve of it all, so you don't get it all happening at once.
Yeah.
Because from most pandemics I've read about, even if the disease itself is not that deadly, but requires treatment and all that, health systems, if it all happens relatively quickly and everyone's getting it at once, they get swamped.
Yeah.
And then people who have other diseases like cancer and various things, they all get not as good health care. And so you often have more deaths coming not from... You probably see this. You get more deaths coming from people who just can't access normal health care.
Oh, that's right. There's only a finite
from the
amount
corona.
of hospital beds in the world or any particular country. So,
So that's why they're limiting these sporting events. So that's with the Grand Prix. That's probably going to be developing about how that goes ahead and all that.
I think, that starts today, the Grand Prix. So by the weekend.
It's going to happen, but it's going to be
by the weekend anything.
Australia, probably our preparation for the Fed Cup, it's been put on ice after the World Tennis Chiefs postponed the event in Hungary over the coronavirus fears. So
Fair enough.
It's not going ahead. The Golden State Warriors are going to play an NBA game against the Brooklyn Nets behind closed doors on Friday. So there just won't be a crowd.
I'll watch that tomorrow. I'll be interested to watch that.
It'll be eerie.
It'll be strange. All you'll hear is the squeaking of the runners on the court.
Well, the Matildas have played some games without
and coaches
crowds.
Screaming.
Did you hear Jeremy Howe said?
Yeah.
I'm probably used to not playing in front of crowds because I used to play for Melbourne.
Yeah.
And people were tweeting me like, am I outraged? And I was like, it's a pretty funny joke.
Yeah.
Like, I'll pay
There
that.
were a lot of Melbourne supporters pretty angry about that.
Yeah, I was like, why are we angry? Like, it's kind of, he's saying it a bit tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But it's also, all like most good jokes, it's true.
Well, what I liked is so many Melbourne supporters got upset and started calling him One Trick.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy One Trick Howe.
He was more one trick at Melbourne. He's become a much more solid player.
And even if he is a one trick,
Collingwood.
it's a pretty good trick.
Yeah,
you jump about 8 feet straight up.
I'm known as no trick. Yeah. I don't even have a trick. So he said that, which I thought was interesting. It is funny. Sometimes, it is funny what triggers various sporting teams and what they get annoyed about. I always find it really interesting about, I got to credit to Collingwood fans. Whenever I bag Collingwood fans, I get very few annoyed. They're just used to it.
Yeah.
They like the banter. Some other teams just don't handle it. Carlton fans, if I make a Carlton joke, I get 40 comments going, Melbourne are terrible. I go, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah. A lot of Essendon supporters are still fairly touchy.
There's a certain, it's not all Essendon supporters, but there's certain ones that are touchy about anything we've heard or,
the drug scandal.
And so you get Freo fans are funny. They always say to me, I'm not being harsh enough. They're full Stockholm syndrome. They're the opposite way. They're like, be meaner. You're not being mean enough to what we're doing.
Yeah, they got a touch of the Melbournes about them.
But the Melbourne supporters get funny about some things. Not all of them, because a lot of us are too depressed to get angry. But few got annoyed about Howe's comments. But I remember Danny McGinlay telling me when he was doing the Bulldogs banners.
Yeah.
He did one at the G when they were playing Melbourne, and it was something like, I can't remember the exact, it was a great banner, I can't remember the exact wording.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But it basically made a joke like, something about what that, we'll have won, it's not this, but, and we'll be cheering, and you'll still be worrying about your negative gearing. Because it was about when negative gearing was threatened to go away. And a few Milms was like really angry about it, and they tweeted me about it, and I'm like, "That's a hilarious banner.
That's a great line.
It's a great line, and you know, like I'm only angry about it because Danny came out with it instead of me.
Yeah.
But like you know, so every sporting group is triggered. So I thought Howe's comments were just like alarmingly accurate. Going through the list of the Major League Baseball season, which is currently in spring training, and they're playing games and everything as their pre-season. It starts beginning of April. Yeah,
it's a few weeks away. I think.
A few weeks away.
Yeah.
They're now looking at, and it will depend what each state does over there a bit. Like, so you can, you know, depending on how they're experiencing and all that. But their start is under a bit of threat where the Seattle Mariners, they're going to move their home games out of Seattle through to the end of March, which is for their preseason at the moment, after the state of Washington, which is where Seattle's based, have decided they're going to ban large group events in response to the coronavirus outbreak. Yeah. The Formula One, now we talked about how in Melbourne it's already been affected. The Formula One in Bahrain is on March 22nd.
The following week,
it's going to have no spectators.
Right.
Formula One, the Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai on April 19 has been postponed. Obviously, because China's in a lot more trouble. The Six Nations, they've got games, Ireland versus Italy in Dublin, Italy versus England in Rome, France versus Ireland in Paris. These are all sort of March around. Some were the last couple of days, some are coming up. They have all been postponed.
And so many of these things, as you say, have been postponed, but you have to wonder, will they ever be rescheduled, some of these? Because if things get worse, but they'll be continually postponed.
Yeah, it's just when are you going to? Well, that's one of the things. Like, how do you? I've seen with some, like they're saying with some leagues that are like almost like 2/3 of the way through. I know the Italian Series A is like that. They're just going. Well, one of the things is we just end the season and just say that
whoever's on top
wins. And today, and they've already had games played with no one there. Yeah. They've announced just this morning that a guy plays for Italy as well, centre back Daniel Regani. He's tested positive for the coronavirus, so he's got it.
So there you go.
They've activating all the isolation procedures required by law, they say. So that's another one, because Italy's in real trouble. Their health system is smashed, and they're having enormous problems. The AFL have come out and tried to be proactive on this, and I'm not saying they've done a bad or good job, because I think it's all so dynamic. And I always love when, it's a bit like, I always find it really amusing when stories are written, especially by the Melbourne media, which is always through the lens of the AFL. Yeah. And they always, like, remember when there was the stuff where North Korea, Kim Jong-un it was like threats of sending nuclear missiles into South Korea and all this sort of stuff a few years ago, and the Melbourne media wrote it up as threat to the China game. Like, that's the angle
that's what they're worried about over there.
Yeah, we could have nuclear Armageddon.
We want to stop Port Adelaide and St Kilda.
So we could have nuclear Armageddon, but really the key bit is it could affect the China game. So the AFL sort of tried to come out a few times and say, we're looking at all the contingencies, which is right. But the thing that's kind of been interesting about this is as much, and this is the thing I think about a lot of these sporting events that is what people aren't grasping, is the clubs and the leagues aren't going to be the ones that probably make the decision.
No.
Like, they can maybe be a bit proactive ahead of the government and say...
they confront the cameras and make it sound like that.
They could even have their own plans, but if the government comes across and says, "No, you can't hold them,"
that's it.
That's it. What are they going to do? So they've said that in one thing that the AFL were aware that if a coach or a club official or a player tested positive to coronavirus, that they thought they might be able to have the match still go ahead and they'd just isolate that player. Yeah. But now it's come out that even federal and state governments might actually at that point go, well, you can't hold it.
Yeah.
And
the clubs are already on the back foot, closing down their administration. There's no visitors allowed.
Yeah.
I think Collingwood last night or the Western Bulldogs had their season launch and St Kilda.
Yeah,
and
they
again,
banned the
because normally
pre-function drinks and meet and greet or something.
Supporters go there, and beforehand, that's your time to get a selfie or an autograph for the players.
Yeah,
they've kept all the players well off the mark.
Oh, I think players are probably thrilled to not have to interact with the fans.
I think self-isolation for an AFL player is not a bad thing. Yeah.
So that's the thing. The federal government or state government could come in and say that this could just not happen. And so it could come out. So we could see them either played in front of empty stadiums. I think this is getting increasingly likely.
I'll be surprised if it doesn't happen.
I'm gutted. I know this is silly, but I look forward to and enjoy going to the footy each week.
Yeah. And
I know I can watch it on television.
But that's not the same.
It's just not the same. Like, it's, and the amount of people I catch up with through the football, because blokes are hopeless at organising catching up. But if you're all at the football, if you're going to the football, I'll see you there. Yeah. There's a lot of that. So suddenly that's the stuff that's all. The rhythm of this town in Melbourne is all driven by the footy. So
it will be just a bizarre situation. It'll be like one of those pandemic movies.
Yeah,
really. Yeah. If there's a game going on at the MCG and there's no one there.
I can only imagine if I'm feeling like this. Imagine how the fans of a good team are feeling. Because I was thinking, why couldn't this happen last year? Because I would have paid money to not see any of last year.
Also, and the other thing, if games at Marvel Stadium, I was going to call it Etihad at Marvel. Now, the AFL, they won't have to change their policy of having no one on the ticket windows. Or
you never get them anyway.
Admission gates. You can't get in anyhow.
So, it's totally going to be bizarre. Like, it's, And
I heard one of the commentators say last night that it could be, it looks like round one will go ahead as planned.
Yeah.
But it could be as early as round two where they start playing without spectators.
Yeah.
And then the obvious question is, at what point do you go, oh, no, we're pretty right now. We'll go back to letting people go to the footy.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Can't imagine that dragging out for 6 months.
Can you imagine if it was the whole season or whatever, what it would do to the club's bottom line and the AFL's bottom line? Well,
they were saying about memberships, like they're looking at things about
their money back
refunding people and things like that. But then I saw Eddie said, I'd hope members would dig deep and just suffer the loss.
See it as a donation to the club, which is how I've always looked at my Melbourne membership anyway.
It's the only membership in the country that you can write off to tax as a charity donation. So anyway, this is going to be ongoing, and I think we're going to see lots of impacts. So
as you say, it's today's Thursday when we're recording this. By the weekend or by the end of the coming weekend, this could be all happening.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And my thing about
changing by the hour.
My thing I've always worried about this from early on is and I know this will affect we talked about it will affect the elderly and certain people. I was never like, well, this is going to wipe everyone out. Like, it's not going to be the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
But I was always like I think the bigger impact on most people, not on everyone, but on a lot of people, is going to be this. Is going to be the financial and the disruption of work, school. Because the Premier in Victoria has already said that probably every school at some point will close.
Yeah.
Which is, we are literally all going to have to be spending more time with our family, whether we like it or not.
Well, exactly. Some of the big private schools here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Cary's already shut down.
Yeah,
at least
for
until
a day.
Sunday.
They did a day or something.
Yeah, but no, they've extended it till the weekend. I know one of the other schools, big private schools, have stopped moving between the campuses because a lot of the kids have sport. They go from one campus to another.
Right.
They've stopped that, and there's a couple of kids have gone in for testing, and then bang, that'll be it. And I know a lot of the kids are going, oh, great. School's going to be closed.
Well, you always heard about in America they had snow days.
Yes.
And in Australia you never got them. So it's like, you never. For some kids it's like, you could just imagine being at school and you've got a big test and suddenly you don't have to do it. This is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you're sitting down, I can see you, but anyone listening to this at the moment, we've got a story that is going to shock Absolutely everyone. And so I hope if you're driving, pull over. If you're standing, sit down. If you're sitting, lie down, because this is going to shock you.
If you've got a drink in your hand, scull it.
Because I know when I told you, the look on your face was like you were shook.
Visibly shaken. Yeah.
The NRL season launch has been overshadowed by a sex scandal.
It's
almost like it's not almost. It is a tradition of these guys.
You can set your calendar by it.
It is. I can't remember because last preseason previous, that was the one where said this is the worst preseason in terms of player behaviour ever. And I thought, gee, that's a big call because there's been some doozies.
Yeah.
Like
they just don't let you down.
No one does
players.
It like they do. No. This one's particularly distasteful in many ways. So two Canterbury Bulldogs, and it had to be the Canterbury Bulldogs. They have
they've got a great track record.
If you go on their Wikipedia page and read their controversies, you'll be there for a week.
Yeah.
Like if you got to kill 2 weeks at home with the kids, you'll fill 2 weeks reading up on Canterbury's previous exploits.
That's a horror movie.
They had two players, so this is it's all sort of allegedly, but there are social media posts and everything, so there's a lot of proof. It's not exactly two of their players, Jaden Okunbor and Corey Harawira Niera, both have been stood down amid claims they had sex with two schoolgirls. Now, they were apparently visiting Port Macquarie for a trial game, and what they actually did was they met the Daily Telegraph reported this. They'd met the students during a school visit to promote the club's trial match against Canberra, and then afterwards they basically connected on social media, I think on Instagram, and then hooked up and had sex with them. Now, the key bit here is that both the females were believed to be 17.
Yeah. They weren't underage.
Which is technically, it says that's 1 year above the age of consent, apparently. Which I didn't know because I always remember occasionally in my life, not often, but once or twice in my life, meeting a bloke who knows the age of consent laws a little too well. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are certain topics in life that when someone says, what is the deal with, what is that website?
Yeah.
Like, what is Pornhub? And you go, I don't know. And, there's certain things that you're best not to show your knowledge.
Yeah.
Or if you do have too much.
Yeah, or Grindr.com. Yeah.
It's like, there's a whole heap of them, right? Like drugs or how much is an ounce of, it's like... What is that? Like there's always this element, and that occasionally you'll meet some guy who'll be like, "Oh no, that's in South Australia, WA,
different states."
You're like, what? Why do you know this?
Yeah,
like this is
why would you have
ever
needed to know this?
So the big point that a few people have made is this is all with the women were of legal age. And consented. So there's no, there's none of that criminal activity here. No. So it comes down to a moral, distasteful optics thing.
Yeah.
Now, I think any defence you ever have to make in life that begins with technically they're of the right age of consent, you are already...
on the back foot.
You're already just a little bit kind of... But it's the fact that NRL players, professional capacity going to a school, hooking up with schoolgirls afterwards and all this, like...
Is there a worse look than going to do a footy clinic at a school and then knocking off a couple of the kids?
Oh.
I mean, sure, they're not kids technically, but...
Very technically. This is the thing. It is a pure... If you can
think of a
technical
worse look,
Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
especially for the NRL with all their history and
Exactly.
everything, all the effort that's gone in by the NRL and the clubs to try and educate players, which just, one of my favourite sayings is, you can't educate an idiot.
Yeah.
And it is like, it's pouring water into an empty a bucket with a hole in it, right? Like it is not retained. So they've done this, you just shake your head. Like, you just can't.
Well, look, and to be fair, in this case, in the past, the NRL could be accused of not turning a blind eye, but letting things get out of hand.
Or excusing it.
Excusing it all.
Being soft on it.
Boys will be boys kind of thing.
And they've done a lot of that. They've got better in the last year, but even like a couple of years ago, they were horrendous and have been horrendous on family violence.
Yeah.
Like letting players back into the league who have gone to jail for it.
Yeah.
And not just like accused or like...
But actually done it.
Matt Lodge is an example of this, but there's been at one point they had 5 or 6 players, depending on when you count it from, or in the league who had all been convicted or pleaded guilty to beating up their partners.
Yeah.
And the NRL still let him in while saying we take a zero tolerance approach.
Yeah.
Well, no, do you understand? I don't think you understand what the word zero or tolerance.
Both of them have gone over your head.
Yeah, you seem to be
just like the
missing
education has. But as I say, to be fair, in this case, just in the last 24 hours, even everyone from the Canterbury Bulldogs club to the NRL to long-time commentators have just gone, how stupid are these blokes? This is beyond the pale.
I feel that's a big bit of it is just it's a bit like I always felt that a lot of the backlash against a very different crime, in inverted commas, or, but I always thought a big part of the backlash on Sandpaper Gate was the stupidity of the entire scheme, how they got caught so easily.
Yeah.
It's almost like you get extra penalty points if the plan is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, there was a guy he just got caught, but there was a guy in Melbourne who cut a hole in the window of a jewellery store and put a fishing rod in and fished out this really expensive necklace. And there was almost an element of that where you go, that's actually pretty clever.
Well,
like, you always give him...
I know they said, they arrested this bloke. And I'm thinking, give him his own TV show.
Yeah.
This
so
guy.
If you do something that's a bit clever, people are always like, you shouldn't have done it, but if you do something...
I'd rather watch him with his fishing rod than Jeremy Wade and his river monsters.
I do know that Rex Hunt was interviewed by the police. But it is that thing where if you do something bad, but it's got an element of evil genius to it, you get sort of credit.
Yeah.
If you do something that's just bad and you're just incredibly stupid,
idiotic,
it's like you almost get an extra penalty for the dumbness.
Yeah. And as you say, the Sandpaper Gate, when they're rubbing the ball with sandpaper on the field, and then it's like, is there TV cameras around?
There's high-def slow motion TV cameras.
Right. There's 18 cameras. Oh, right.
And then they got caught and they all... I don't know what they're talking about.
So both these blokes have been stood down. And
they've been stood down with show cause notices.
I reckon one of them is going to get the flick.
At least one of them, because, they reckon, because like they got 7 days to respond to show cause notices of...
when Phil Gould gets angry about something.
when Phil Gould is on the side of the Angels and is the voice of reason, you're like...
these blokes have really got up to
no one is standing up for them.
No.
Although we're yet to hear what Anthony Mundine has to say. And this is not self-isolating or social distancing.
No.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
These guys are not being sensible. Now, the other bit that I thought was... Well, so anyway, the Canterbury officials, they're considering... sacking. Oakenbaugh is the one they're thinking of sacking because he actually met the female at the schoolyard. So he was like sort of the direct... He was patient zero in this case.
Yeah.
This Bulldogs CEO, Andrew Hill, said that their behaviour wasn't reflective of this football club and the game's code of conduct.
Well, so I'd argue that it was.
I don't think it's very on brand. I don't, but I mean, I do appreciate he's trying to end that stuff. And I think the NRL and the club have shown a level of a proper response that they don't usually. The other bit, though, is I kept reading this.
Yeah.
That just, you read these stories and you just go, gee, that is as bad as this could get. It says here, it comes as a source confirmed, this was the Australian ran this.
Yeah.
It came as a source confirmed to the Australian that one of the Bulldogs footballers also had a sexual encounter with a teacher. So they've really done their outreach program to this school has really gone above and beyond.
He likes the education department, from the top down,
Every school would now, if someone said, do you want the Bulldogs to come visit your school? No.
No, thanks. No, thanks.
No, thanks.
Not even the teachers are safe.
No one is safe. So it's just an absolute, I'm still scratching my head about the whole story because it's just like, how dumb do you have to be?
And the NRL season starts tonight.
So it's totally overshadowed the launch of all of this again, which is just...
Which, again, is on brand for rugby league.
And it still will have probably no impact on rugby league's success because this has been a constant. Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's not like they always write these pieces like, this could drive people away from rugby league.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's like horse racing.
It never has.
Every time someone gets caught doing something dodgy, people go, this is bad for the industry. You go, is it?
Yeah.
Or does every punter factor this in as part of the game?
I think that's part of it. And like... With horse racing, punters will look at it and go, yeah, that was pretty ordinary. That's not a good look. But a bloke I know reckons race 5, number 6, this thing's a certainty. Get on it.
That's right.
That's how people think.
The thing about rugby league is it has been mired in controversy in Australia since literally day zero, not even day one. So the first meeting, when rugby league, as most people know, there was the schism in England where the league split from union. You just had rugby, it split. Rich people who wanted it to be an amateur sport and didn't really want the poor people playing with them, split into union. And these people broke off to say, well, we're working class people, if we miss a game through injury, we want the club to pay us what was called broken time payments, which was you miss 10 shifts at work, we'll cover that for you because you got injured playing for the club. Not you'll get paid to play even back then.
No.
It wasn't full professional.
It was just
that was what they were asking
compensation.
For. The rugby league union guys said no way, and the others said let's do it. And that's how it split. In Australia, that was happening a little bit. There was less of the class division here, but that was sort of happening. They were saying don't pay them, blah, blah. So there was a few business people, and the cricketer, Victor Trumper, was one of them, who decided they wanted to launch a rugby comp that was separate to that you could get paid.
Yeah.
And they'd seen the success of this in a bit in the UK, and there was some of the All Blacks had been played at, which were called, at some point, and so there was all this controversy. So they held a secret meeting in Sydney, a pub in Sydney, with about 50 of the top players, to say, let's form this breakaway league.
It's a bit like World Series cricket.
Yeah. And this was like 1905, I think it was, from memory, although I might be wrong on the exact date. So just to show how rugby league has always had built into them crisis and scandal and the fact that it always gets out and is always mismanaged, they organise this secret meeting. They tell the players where to be. Victor Trumper shows up. The business people who are funding this all show up. They have the meeting. They hire a guy to do the door, like security sort of thing, to make sure no one gets in who isn't in on the plan.
On the plan,
The guy they hire is, when he's not doing security, is a journalist. And writes the story up the next day.
Thought that through.
So that they haven't even set up the league.
And there's been a leak.
And there's a leak. Like, not a game has been played. No teams are in set up.
And they're already
a shambles in crisis. On like, it's literally day zero.
Yeah,
it's not even day one.
Played a game. They haven't even formed a single club yet.
No. Yeah. So this idea, this like constant, it is almost like a tradition.
It's 120 years of stupidity and incompetence.
Yeah,
you know.
And so the NRL, you can tell, just furious because they just want some clear air. They had a terrible season last season or pre-season, so they went like they read the riot act.
Yeah.
This isn't happening anymore, blah, blah, blah. And then this happens.
And, you know, just a matter of days after they released that new commercial, which the old Tina Turner, Simply the Best, which whoever put that together and edited it did a very good job. It was pretty good. But that's all forgotten now because everyone, including us, are just talking about these two idiots.
I know. And at what point does it not enter your head that this is a bit of a bad idea?
Oh, exactly. I mean, you don't, I mean, there's that great old saying, you don't have to be Einstein to know that if we're going to a school footy clinic, probably best not to fool around with any of the kids.
Yeah.
Okay, they might be 17, but still...
It's not a legal issue.
It'd be smarter if we didn't, don't you reckon?
Yeah.
And if one of them...
Or wait a year.
Yeah. Or one of them says, oh, look, that chick that we met this afternoon, she's pretty keen to pop round to the hotel tonight. Wouldn't his mate go, you know what? Don't.
Yeah, why don't we just go out and meet? We're NRL players. It's not going to be impossible for you to meet someone.
Let's just go down to the pub, have a few jars and see what happens.
I don't know. Maybe it was true love, Serge. We don't know.
Well, that's true. It is that time of year, isn't it?
Crossing over to rugby union. English prop Joe Marler could face serious consequences after applying a squirrel grip to the Welsh captain Alan Wynne Jones during England's 33-36 Nations win last weekend. Joe Marler will be wishing this had been cancelled. He gave the squirrel grip. Some people have been calling it sexual assault.
Well,
I don't think there was anything sexual in it.
I think
it's assault.
Yeah, well, hey, I actually looked up the rules for this and the penalties in rugby union, and they talk about grabbing the the scrotum of an opposition player.
Hey, can you believe we've done almost like... I think we've almost done 300 episodes, and I think that's the first time that word's come up, which is amazing. You would not have picked that.
It's never far from our mind.
I know. So and given all the stories we've covered, I can't believe this is a first. But anyway, there you go.
What I was saying to you is it grabbing of said scrotum.
I'm going to just
there is an extra.
You say scrotum and make it my message tone.
Make your ringtone on your phone. There is an extra penalty for twisting.
So cupping, I guess, is more of a friendly act.
Handling, squeezing is all frowned upon, but you get an extra penalty for twisting.
Right.
Which kind of makes sense when you think about it.
Very much makes sense.
So young Joe... or old Joe, they're talking about at least 12 weeks on the sidelines for him.
It was interesting.
Keep your hands to yourself, Joe.
Where Alan Wynne Jones, the captain who had it happen to him.
Not Alan Jones.
Might just move on from there.
There's a lot going through my mind.
There's a lot of lines there. He said that the guy, he goes, oh, he's a good bloke.
Yeah. So he wasn't overly
If someone tried to do that to me, I wouldn't be going, gee, you're a top bloke, but that was a bit out of line.
I mean, did they ever say that about John Hopewate?
Yeah. I love when these things are like in the heat of battle. Yeah. And you're like, a lot of people have played a lot of sport over the years and never done this.
Also, remember Peter Philandia?
Yeah.
A bitter bloke.
Yeah.
You know, I played a lot of footy. It never occurred to me that...
To bite someone. Maybe that's why you and I didn't make it to the top level. We weren't willing to win at all costs. So anyway, 12 weeks off.
12 weeks he will get at least.
If matches are suspended, he
may never play again.
He may never play a single time.
You'll regret that little
once again,
grip and twist.
No social distancing right there. Like people not getting the memos. While we're talking about that, the rugby union is a mess at the moment, just in Australia, just generally. I mean, you would not know. Living in Australia, living in Melbourne, I can speak of, but I know I was up in Sydney recently and we were talking about Waratahs games and the crowds there are pretty dismal.
Yeah.
But in Melbourne, like you wouldn't know the Rebels exist, really. Yeah. It is kind of...
I mean, when the Rebels came on the scene in Melbourne, they got a fair bit of publicity. And everybody, even if people go, rugby union's not for me, but everybody knew they existed. Now you wouldn't even know.
But even then, like I always felt they started, remember they gave it the Perth, they gave a team first in Super Rugby. And then so it took a lot longer. I always think if they'd launched the Rebels like around 2003-04 when the World Cup had been here and it had been a huge success, the Rebels would have got some traction, but they waited and then launched it late and it didn't get the traction. But anyway, so they're having enormous troubles. Now, Renee Castle, who's the CEO of Rugby Australia, they've tried to be signing for some time this TV rights deal.
Yeah.
And it's like a 101 of how...
Because Foxtel sort of pulled out, didn't they? They've been doing
this
it
was
for
the
years.
thing, right? There was this... It's like 101 of how not to negotiate.
Yeah.
So anyone who has half a brain knows that if you're selling something, it's better to have multiple block buyers.
Yes,
because the chance of driving up the price...
It's the auction mentality.
Yeah. And then on top of that, if you get a good offer... Yeah. You need to seriously, know your selling position. Like, if you're red hot, if you're the AFL, even the NRL, or you've got something people desperately want, and you got a good chance to get several buyers going for it and a good amount of money. But you'd say with rugby union, it's rating terribly on Fox Sports.
Yeah.
So they had not a lot of negotiating power with Fox Sports.
People aren't going to see it. They had the Israel Folau.
Yeah, they've mishandled a bunch of things, but also just purely the lifeblood of every sporting thing is ratings, really. Yeah. Ratings and attendance. Yeah. Participation too, you'd say, but really ratings is the big one in terms of immediacy for money.
Oh, exactly.
So they weren't getting any of that. So Fox Sports had a $40 million a year offer they put on the table. And you got to remember, there were no other suitors of note that could put forward that sort of money, really.
They weren't outbidding anyone. They just said, here we go. We'll offer you 40.
And partly that is because Fox Sports have, they need content for their sports channel, but also they have significantly invested over the years in rugby union and Super Rugby to try and... So it was sort of like, well, let's try and keep it going, make sense to them. Now... Rugby Australia, in their wisdom, said, well, we won't do it. We're not doing it.
We won't take your 40 mil.
We won't take your 40 mil.
Put it out to tender.
And Fox Sports just called their bluff and went, all right.
Okay.
We're not upping it.
Yeah.
Where else are you going to go?
Give us a call. Yeah.
And so basically the ones that have sort of like beIN Sports and Optus have sort of kicked the tires of this deal and looked at it. Now, I always think about with sport telecasting, you kind of got to look at it from one, the money you can get, but two, the reach and exposure you can get for your sport.
Exactly.
And quite a lot of sports have struggled in Australia if you're just on pay TV.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. So even more so, it's one thing, Fox Sports and Foxtel at least has, and through KO as well, at least now have a certain penetration into the market that a lot of people, especially hardcore sports fans, will at least be able to watch it. But it's like with the Premier League, going to Optus, it's just, you're buying single sports. People just aren't, unless you're...
It's unreliable, the coverage.
And unless you really want to do it, it's the average person who would just like... See, I watch a lot of KO, and I watch sports that I probably would not watch as hardcore.
Yeah.
If it wasn't just... Like, I watch a lot of NBA. I like the NBA, but if someone said, no, you can't get it because it's on KO because I'm buying that for all my other sports as well. If they said there's no NBA on that's now on Optus, I don't think I'd necessarily go, I need another streaming thing. Like, so they're now ending up looking like, one, they put their broadcast package to the open market and they didn't have a single offer.
Do you reckon Rugby Australia had delusions that free-to-air was going to come on board?
Well, 10 have apparently kicked the tyres on payment for the All Black, the Bledisloe Cup.
Yeah.
Wallabies All Blacks, and said, well, we're happy to maybe pay for that. I think
Maybe
it's
the
like $5
World
million
Cup
on.
every couple of years. But
Well, I think that would be direct with the international.
Probably international, yeah.
But I think they've looked at potentially saying, well, we'll put one Super Rugby match on a week.
Yeah.
But so that's the only bit they get there. So they now are in this state where it looks like Optus, no one has put in a bid, but it looks like Optus could come to the table. But Optus are also now not bidding against anyone. So there's now like reports that they're just going to come in with this low ball offer and go, take it or leave it. Or not have a like, I don't think it's going to get to this because someone will buy it at some point at some price. But like, you know, they managed to negotiate themselves into a position where they're probably going to get less than they would have had on the table, and they're going to probably end up with like being off free to air or very harder to watch, and getting a low ball offer.
It's like porn stars. Yeah.
Well, here we go.
No. PAWN stars.
Oh, right.
Yeah. We go, what do you want to do? Sell it or pawn it? Guys, I want to sell it. What do you want for it? 10,000. I'll give you 200.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's like that. They go in with high hopes, and pretty soon they're walking out with their tail between their legs, and they've just been written up by Chumley over in the corner. You know,
it always reminds me of in life generally. I reckon like. There's all this stuff where people say, don't sell yourself short, know your worth. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, right? Like, but the flip side of that, whenever you're applying for a job or negotiating salary, that is, you got to truly know your worth both ways. So you don't want to undersell yourself, but you also don't want to think you're way better than you are.
Yeah, or want more than...
Yeah, because I've seen lots of people, whether they're in the sports media or in just normal jobs or something, think that they're offering a product that isn't eminently replaceable by a lot of other people or is not that appealing an idea. And I feel like here with Rugby Australia, they think they've got something that's more desirable than it actually is. They've
just got to be realistic about where they are as a sport.
Yeah.
And work it accordingly.
So
they're just pricing themselves out of the market.
It's just an amazing story to just go from having a $40 million a year on the table deal to suddenly seeing if Optus will put it on their app.
You can watch it on your phone if you're lucky, on your Wi-Fi, on your hotspot.
Because I think they've sorted out a lot of their technology problems, Optus, but it's that critical mass with sport.
Good luck to them. So. Who knows what will happen on that one, and who knows what's going to happen by this time next week. Well, as far as the coronavirus and sport and most importantly footy. Footy starts.
How are we going to get through this, Serge?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Imagine sitting there watching on telly, watching AFL footy, being played in a completely empty stadium. It's, as somebody on Twitter said, it's the Sheffield Shield option. What's it going to be like?
You also can't even just, if you're having the self-isolate, you can't even just go to the pub to watch it with people.
No.
So that shared experience, it's all going to happen over Twitter and stuff, just the banter and stuff. There's nothing you can do.
Well, that'll be the next thing. They'll be closing down pubs because gathering of people.
Yeah.
They'll shut down the whole joint.
Maybe we do need to go and stockpile booze. You suddenly got me a bit worried.
I'm telling you what.
I've marked on a map. There's a gun shop not far from here. There's a bottle shop. I'm working out the order I go and rob them in the next few weeks.
Grog and guns. Get on board.
That could actually be our new podcast. Yeah, if it goes really, we'll start giving coronavirus survival tips. One things that will never die is podcasts and cockroaches. It's the only two things that will survive,
and both worth about the same amount.
All right. On that note,
that cheery note.
We'll see how we are. We hope to be back next week.
Yeah. Who knows?
No more lying in bed together while we record this, Serge. We might have to sit in separate seats for once.
I am actually going to. implement full self-isolation, I think.
Well, on that note, stay safe, everyone, and we will hope to see you next week.